LeBron James and Lakers to take on the stretch mark 5 and the Nuggets tonight. But we start with the Miami Heat. Again, down big against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and again come roaring back to win the game and take a commanding lead in the series. Jalen, who was the key to this turnaround in Game 2?
Well, I'm not going to start 35,000 square feet and say Pat Riley, the architect, where I can make the argument that he's probably been a better executive than a coach, where he should be Hall of Fame at both, that basically nurtured Eric Spoelstra into one of the best coaches in the NBA that I've seen coach LeBron in the Big Three, Dwayne Wade, Shaq. Then I've also seen him coach a team like this that seems like a land of misfit toys. So now when you take it to the floor, Jimmy Butler, he's a guy that plays different offensively in the fourth quarter than he does the first three. And he plays with tenacity on defense every quarter. Did you see that play right there? That save? That's court awareness. He threw that with his left hand to a position where his teammate could get it and got it back for a dunk. He had deflections late on that end of the floor that caused offense. Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic offensively, who's been totally consistent, giving them threes, giving them that offensive punch that we don't discuss, because usually when we talk about teams, we talk about their best players, but he's been terrific in these playoffs, giving the Heat some effectiveness on offense.
Dragic is, you can just put him in for between 20 and 25 points every single playoff game. He never scores 26. He never scores 15. It is always between 20 and 25. He is just so consistent. And when you think about this team, you think about the two All-Stars, you think about Butler and you think about Bam, and you think about the white shooters that I love so much with Hero and Robinson. But Dragic is really the heart and soul on the offensive side of the floor. He's a floor general, and he's just a straight-up scorer. There's part of me that if I was Brad Stevens, I'd be like, you know he's left-handed, right? Like, because he's always finishing on the left side of the bucket. So you are a lefty too. So tell me what that is. Why don't they just cut off his left hand?
Right-handed people, let me just tell you something. I know everything in the world is designed for you. When you go to the bank, the pen is on the right hand. When you go to school, the desk is on the right hand. I get that. Everything is designed for you. But people that are left-handed think with our right mind. And that's where your intellect comes from. And here's what I'll say. Y'all always talk about players who are dominant left that don't go right. But 90% of the league only goes right. And we never say that about them. Is he's so very good at, he can shoot well enough that you got to get up on him. And you know what shooting gives you? Speed. It doesn't make you faster. It just makes the defense have to close out to you. So now he can drive around him and go to his strong left hand. And that's what he's doing. Oh, and the big want to come help? I'll lob it over the top to Bam. Oh, the wing want to help? I'll do the swing pass to the corner for Hero or for Duncan Robinson to make the three. They're using him to his strength and getting the most out of a player that was an underutilized asset based on his salary the last couple of seasons almost.
Jalen, I'm glad you brought up Spoelstra earlier, because he is really flexing in these playoffs. And what he did in this series specifically is impressive. They played a lot of zone during the regular season, but not so much in the playoffs. But you know, Eric Spoelstra was watching that Raptors-Celtics series, and he's like, you know what? This team has a little bit of trouble against the zone. And when you look at the numbers of where they get their shots from versus the man in the zone, you see here they shoot a lot more threes against the zone. They get a lot less in the paint against the zone. And that has been the key to the Raptors stifling this offensive attack of the Celtics. Why is it that the Celtics have so much trouble against the zone defense?
So look at that. And I wanted them to cut that footage in particular. For anybody that's played basketball, look at the front of that 2-3 zone. I'm teaching you guys right now. It's Jimmy Butler and it's Jay Crowder. But you see on the bottom, they're basically hiding Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Goran Dragic defensively. So when the ball goes to the wing, if you're going to try to take advantage of them, now you can double with the middle back guy to zone Bam and or Jimmy or Jay Crowder to protect them defensively. But at the top of the floor, now you got your two best wing defenders causing havoc and getting deflections. Normally, if this was high school, the two wing lower guys, the worst defenders will be at the top, but they're inverted right now. And so why do you do that? You do a lot of switching, you flatten out teams, and you force them to go one-on-one. Well, Jason Tatum is terrific at isolation, one of the best in the game. Kemba Walker is best off pick and roll. So now we're going to take that away from him. We're going to take that away from him. And we're going to force him to play in a phone booth. And that's what they've done to try to slow down Kemba. But then it limits players like Jaylen Brown. It forces him to not only be a spot shooter because he's not getting that normal action from their offense.
Jalen, you know that I've adopted the Miami Heat as my team this postseason. And you know one of the reasons, my white guys. I love Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson so much. When they're on the floor, I feel like I'm on the floor. And Duncan Robinson, I'm going to be honest, he's been terrible during this postseason. But last night, Duncan Robinson stepped up, and he didn't just hit 1 3 or 2 threes or 3 threes or 4 threes or 5 threes. He had 6 threes. He looked like the Duncan Robinson that we have seen all regular season. Quick release, open shots, knocking them down. I loved what I saw from Duncan Robinson last night because while the Heat have been very successful this postseason, lost 1 game in double overtime. 1 game they've lost this entire postseason in the bubble. Duncan Robinson has not contributed, and it was so good to see him knocking down shots last night. Now, you've pointed out a key player on the Celtics that needs to change their behavior in order to change this series. Who is that, Mr. Rose?
Jason Tatum. Because when you ascend to an all-NBA performer, now all of a sudden, as your team continues to progress into the playoffs, your productivity has to get better. Your efficiency has to improve, not get worse. He looked a little fatigued to me, Jacoby, as well.
Good point.
And I thought something was off initially when I saw him with a headband on. Like, don't he know he got one of the freshest cuts and hairlines in the history of sports, along with Devin Booker and Fred VanVleet and some other guy? Like, when he has something on his head, that threw me off, and that affected his performance. Take that headband off, Jason. Get a fresh cut. Continue to attack the rack. I know Bam blocked your dunk, and sometimes it's like Mike Tyson hitting you in the face. It can drop you back and put you on a standing 8 count, but continue to attack. And I know it's 2-0. I know it's 2-0. And everybody want to pile on the Celtics. And after the game, they're in the locker room, Jacoby. Of course it's going to be heated, right?
Of course it is.
It's going to be heated.
Jalen, I'm glad we have you here because you have a lot of experience in losing playoffs games. So we're going to rely on that experience. We need you to take us behind the curtain. We've all heard the reports. There was screaming. There was throwing things in the Celtics locker room. Jalen Rose, you've been a part of many bad playoff losses. Take us behind the curtain. What is it that environment like that we can't see?
So the playoffs mean everything. It's the difference between life or death. It's the difference between breathing or not. Like, each possession, each moment means everything. That's why when you look back at historic playoff runs, you always have those plays that are ingrained in your mind or those games that are ingrained in your mind. So you can be psychologically and emotionally overwhelmed, Jacoby. And then when you get into the locker room, you feel like you didn't play to your expectation, there's going to be a level of frustration, and it's going to spill out. And to the media and fans, the best player on the team is supposed to be the leader. It's supposed to be the most outspoken person. But on a team like Boston, players like Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown, they become the pulse of what you do in a lot of ways, and Kemba being the elder statesman of that younger group. And I'm pretty sure as a guy like Jason Tatum has ascended, even though they're all around the same age, in particular Jaylen Brown, those conversations are now, this is what we need from you. This is what we need from you. And usually the public doesn't know or hear, especially the opponent. But for Jimmy Butler being in a bubble, you're going to go to the press conference and you're going to hear the other team arguing. Media, they're going to hear the other team arguing. But when you're down 2-0, guess what, Jacoby? You should be arguing. So this was, and I don't believe, while the Celtics won't win this series, in my opinion, I don't believe it's going to be a landslide by the Miami Heat. I do still anticipate a long series.
Yes, I mean, these games have been very close, both of them going down to the wire, one of them going to overtime. I expect a long series, and I also expect my Miami Heat culture to come out with the victory in the series.
Such a die-easy fan. Oh, yeah. Man.
I'll be off the Heat once they lose one game. I'll be off them once they lose one game. You know how I do. I'm a front runner for sure. Jalen, it comes as no surprise, but it is big news. Giannis Antetokounmpo has won his second straight MVP. He is the defensive player of the year. He is the most valuable player of the year, and he is also watching the games from home as they continue in the bubble. What do you think about the MVP going to Giannis Antetokounmpo?
I think I have a public service announcement for somebody that's been a part of this league